So this is the HD6XX, which is probably the most popular audiophile grade headphone on the market right now. And this is the IFi CAN and DAC signature. And these are specifically designed for use with the HD6XX. Now, a quick disclaimer here, IFi did loan these to me for review. I am being told that the internals and the sound are going to be exactly like the units I have here, but the externals may be subject to change, and these are pre-production models, not reminiscent of the final version. For that, go to drop when this actually comes out, and you'll see all the changes, if any at all. Now, while this amplifier is more than competent for other headphones that are not the 6XX, it is designed specifically and optimized specifically for the XX. And the combination of the two honestly sound amazing, especially with the use of the HD6XX button, which is masquerading as a bass boost button. Now, that is no bad thing. That button is what unlocks the 6XX into its final form. People spend thousands and thousands of dollars trying to get the 6XX to sound a certain way, while this amp is able to do that for $250. Now, what this is not going to do is be replacing your big and stupidly expensive tube amplifiers. So even something at this price point, like a Dark Voice 336 SE, for example, is probably going to perform better for that application. This is going to be solid state through and through. So one power button, 2 EQ presets, 3 inputs, 4 gain stage settings. The can do it all, from nuclear reactor requiring planars down to fairy fart powered IEMs. For single-ended performance, you get 1 watt at 32 ohms and 0.6 watts for balanced. Now, while seemingly unimpressive for balanced performance at 32 ohms, it comes back with a vengeance at higher impedances. Take 300 ohms, for example. This will put out about 765 milliwatts, which is actually equivalent to the same output versus impedance of something like a THX 789. So this actually has quite a bit of power at something like 300 ohms, which, wouldn't you know, it just so happens to be the impedance of the 6XX. Now, at the price point, there are definitely more powerful amplifiers out there, but at a certain point, power is not everything. Now, this was able to drive really demanding planars like the IFi to a pleasing level where it felt completely fulfilled, dynamic, and rich. But it also showed its more sensitive nature, providing almost no audible noise floor, even with incredibly efficient IEMs like FUR M5s. So even though this is designed from the ground up to play really well with the 6XX, it still performs very well for every other headphone on the market that I've tested. So if you have things like 4XXs or HD800s or LCDs, you're gonna be good. So the design is straight from the old school automotive era, with a build quality that rivals even the best of them at this price range, save for a couple of rattles from some buttons. Notably, this is probably going to be stationary, and then it's fine. Now, the build of both is actually quite nice, quite solid and dense feeling, a little bit larger and a little bit heavier than something like a Schiit Magni. The DAC does have a ring light around the volume knob, but that ring light is not present on the amp itself. I'm not sure if this is something that will be changing for the final revision or if this is just the pre-production units. So look at the website for more information on that. Now, unfortunately for you optical and coaxial users, this DAC is USB only. And lucky enough for us USB users, it can actually power the unit with just that USB straight off of a computer. And it's outputting to RCA or 4.4mm balanced. A strange choice. I suspect it was probably due to saving weight because XLRs are big and bulky, and these are obviously not big and bulky devices, but a strange choice nonetheless. Now, the best DACs are going to have a ton of outputs and a ton of inputs, whilst being as clean as they possibly can be, which is something that this actually misses out on. Not the cleanliness, but the choices of inputs and outputs, which makes this a complicated device to recommend. And for not everybody's circumstances, am I going to recommend it? Now, though I do appreciate certain things like being able to power this off of USB straight from the computer, no power input needed, I don't appreciate certain things like having a variable versus fixed output option, but not having a switch for RCA versus 4.4mm. So unfortunately, you cannot have something like powered monitors and a headphone amplifier hooked up at the same time and being able to switch between the two, which is a bit of a missed opportunity. Though I do appreciate the variable output via volume knob on the front. Now, what would have made this amp just a hair better and possibly a top of my recommendations list would have been Bluetooth. This is something that IFi is certainly capable of doing, but unfortunately this doesn't have it, so you're stuck with USB and USB only. Now on the inputs for the actual amplifier, we have RCA, 3.5mm, and that 4.4mm balance, which finding male-to-male 4.4mm balanced cables is actually not easy to do. Pretty hard and kind of expensive. And notably, to the best of my knowledge, these units don't come with one. Now on the front end of the amp, it does have a typical 1/4" output as well as, again, the 4.4mm balanced. I recommend getting an adapter. They're about 25 bucks, but they're a whole lot cheaper than most 4.4mm cables. For example, this 4.4mm cable for the HD6XX is nearly $400, which is crazy. What I do recommend is hitting up Periapt. I don't think they have 4.4mm listed yet, but they do make 4.4mm cables for a number of headphones, including the 6XX, and at a very reasonable price for a premium cable. Now the bass boost button right here is just the right amount, getting progressively stronger the lower and lower in frequency you go. Now this avoids boxiness in the mid bass, but hits strong and confidently in the sub bass. And this broadens the amount of music that something like the 6XX is going to be good with. It also performs similarly to really well-tuned EQs, if not perhaps a little better. And the best part is, it's completely optional. So conclusively, I think that this hits the nail on the head for its intended purpose. And I cannot think of a better amplifier that I would rather have with the 6XX at this price range. That being said, I especially think that the CAN is an amazing device. The inputs, the outputs are a little weird, and you do have to calculate the cost of adapters into the price of this. However, this just seems like the right amplifier to get for the 6XX. Everything down to the color. The DAC, however, is sort of a list of pros and cons. So the cons being limited inputs and strange outputs. The pros being that the market for balanced DACs at this price is almost non-existent, save for a couple of examples. So my recommendation, I think the CAN is 100% worth it. The DAC, you gotta be after the specific feature set for me to say, yes, add it to your system. And for both, you're gonna have to calculate the cost of adapters and cables, unfortunately. Adapters are probably the easiest and cheapest way to go, by the way, especially to adapt to current gear. Okay guys, thank you very much for watching. Until the next video, my name's Josh, signing off.